everybody, and welcome back to another yearly wrap-up here on the channel, where as the leaves are falling and the holidays approaching, I go back over everything I've reviewed here on the channel over the last 360-some-ish days, and rank it out in a tier list for you to add to your own TBRs, TBWs, etc. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the 40-some-odd things I have read and reviewed this year on the channel. It's been a productive year, even with a long break. Yay! Now, just a few months ago, you all voted for me to read 1984, which I still appreciate you all doing, which absolutely was a worthwhile reread and something I enjoyed. I'll put it in the A tier. Deserves to be a classic, something that's been, of course, as influential as its reputation states it as. Definitely a must-read for everybody. So I'll go ahead and say, yay, that was an A, and I'll put the corresponding video something was reviewed in on the screen as well. Next up, we have one of the unfortunate disappointments of the year. Martha Wells is the author of Murderbot, which is one of my all-time favorite sci-fi series for sure, and I'm really happy that it's getting an adaptation. But unfortunately, her new release, Witch King, just felt fairly flat to me. There was a really cool magic system and some decent characters, and I like how she played with time in it a little bit, but this was just forgettable and not something that's gonna, I think, stand the test of time as like a new heralded entry for fantasy. It's just meh, fine. Then we have Mad Uncle McGillicuddy's Secret Imagination Explorer. This was a Goblin written book. One of you all actually put this in, and I'm happy to say that while I thought there was a lot of room for improvement, I'm always proud to see Goblins putting out books. I'm gonna put it just below Martha Wells'. It was really cute. It definitely knows what it's trying to be. I just think it needs to be expanded out a bit more to reach its full potential. Then we have one of the recent books here on the channel, something that as I started reading it, I was like, this is fine, but the more I got into it, the more I thought this might be one of the best things I've read this year. Orconomics, baby. This is a satire on capitalism and the fantasy genre as a whole, and it goes in directions that I did not expect, while also bringing some of the best action I have read this year in terms of being just solid action and really funny to the table. So I'm going to put this probably top of A for now, but depending on how this kind of pans out, I could change that. Now we have my least favorite of the Sanderson secret projects. I found Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England to be just not for me in like all ways. I think the main character was kind of forgettable, definitely the most forgettable character Sanderson brought to the table this year, and the conflict, especially at the end, actually kind of sank down into the being mishandled territory. Maybe controversial opinion. The Sanderson fans have always wanted to kind of back him up, but this was probably going to be just the, I mean, it's still imaginative and fun and definitely like has some of the qualities of Sanderson, but I'm going to put it middle of C here. Yep. You just watched me drop it at the bottom of C on accident. I noticed later. Don't worry. Next up, we have Season 2 of The Wheel of Time, which was a massive improvement over Season 1, but what is a massive improvement over Bad? It was all right. It was good. I'd say it like had pretty big problems still, but I found myself, especially if I was just trying to enjoy it, having a good time. Put that in a low B, I think for now will line up. Next is one for a video you actually haven't gotten yet, which is going to be my next entry in the first and the last series, where I read the first chapter of a book, the last chapter of a book. Don't worry, normally I'm not including those books in like a I fully reviewed them thing here, but after we turned off the cameras for that episode of First and Last, I did finish Terry Goodkind's Dead of Bones because I just had so many questions on what the hell happened. So if you want that video, it'll be, I think, coming out Friday, so tomorrow for you all, and that'll be my return to Goodkind after an extremely long time. This is going in D, without question. This is maybe the worst thing I read this year, even partially read this year. Terry Goodkind.
I'm disgusted and repulsed and I can't look away.
And if you haven't seen any of the first and last videos, the most recent one we did was for Fourth Wing, which you can check out right there. Next up, we have, without question, our first S tier entry. This Is How You Lose the Time War was the most inventive, the most emotional, and the most unexpected sci-fi book I have read in recent memory. Just full stop. This was beautiful. It's a masterpiece in my opinion, and something that I think should be on pretty much everybody's TBR if you haven't read it because of the viral sensation it became this year. Two authors coming together to collaborate in such an interesting way on just a flawless premise and executing it beautifully, just without question, beautifully. That is a solid S tier, and I can't really fault it.
Magnificent, isn't it?
Next up, we have Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, I believe, and I called this peak modern fantasy, and I still maintain that. If you really love the trends of the modern fantasy genre and want to see them kind of brought in with some of the best of the classic trends for the genre as well, and just showcase what the pinnacle combination of those two can be, Black Sun does so much great work with culture and character, and just moving the reader through the book almost just violently with how well the pacing is put together. This book is definitely going to be one that's going to stay probably in lower S tier because I don't think I enjoyed it as much as like This Is How You Lose the Time, more on that like emotion level, but from all technical aspects and just general enjoyment, S tier.
Read it, read it.
Now I'm just going to kind of summarize up all of the Berserk I read this year, and that's going to be an easy, probably just above Black Sun S tier. I mean, if you've been following the Berserk journey here on the channel, where we have read through in detail every single volume of Berserk, you will understand why I fell in love with this series, how it's become so important to me, and is my favorite instance of being proven wrong in the history of my career. I originally gave the first volume of Berserk a negative review, and now I think Kentaro Miura has put out the greatest fictional meditation on trauma ever. I Am Not a Serial Killer by Dan Wells. This one I would have put S tier when I was like 19. This is so much fun. It's got that like teen angst, I'm different, but with a total twist coming in there. Blast. Like, I Am Not a Serial Killer, I'm gonna say it's not like as technically stupendous as some of the S tiers. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as Orconomics, or I don't like have the same reverence for it that I do like 1984. But if like Wheel of Time is gonna be low B, I Am Not a Serial Killer is gonna be like the top end of B, well above average. Not something I would demand to be at the top of your TBR, but if you want a quick, fun thriller that has a bend to it, you might not see it coming, that comes in with like a Dexter meets demonic horror vibes, go ahead and pick that one up. Then we have Terry Pratchett's Equal Rights. It's Terry Pratchett's Discworld. I wanted to do so much more Discworld this year, but time just slipped away from me. But I gotta follow through with what I said about Orconomics. Orconomics throws hands with the best of Discworld. It's so impressive. I think I'll put Equal Rights over it just because the characters from Terry Pratchett, kind of untouchable in the grand scope of fantasy. He's able to put in depth and personality in just a few sentences, probably better than any other author I've ever come across. But Orconomics comes close. Like, it's so freaking good and funny. So you're probably going to see that nestled in with my Discworld recommendations in the future.
This is me telling you that I love you and I respect you.
Night Angel Nemesis. I think I remember this one's I'm having trouble pulling from the memory banks a little bit, which isn't a great sign, but I do know for sure that I definitely still enjoyed it. And if I remember correctly, the overall sentiment here was like, if you're a Night Angel fan, you're going to like this because it's Brent Weeks coming in and evolving what he brings to the table really well, while also staying very true to what this series was. So Night Angel Nemesis, I think, yeah, that's going to be like a really high B, purely because Night Angel has never really been too much my thing. You can go back to my book reviews of it earlier here on the channel. I've always been more a fan of Brent Weeks' Lightbringer series, which we're going to talk about a different Lightbringer here. And I'm so thrilled to say we also watched the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. And thank you. I just want to say thank you to my audience for encouraging me to watch these movies. They were blisteringly fun. I went in with high expectations and they were exceeded. That happens so rarely. The whole trilogy, I think, stands up extremely well. And it's one of those that's like so well regarded by its fan base that it's not, oh, which of the movies is good. The debate is just which of the three is best, and they're all so within the ballpark of each other that it really does vary up from fan to fan which one they enjoy the most. I'm going to put How to Train Your Dragon, the trilogy as a whole, probably just below Organomics. Then we have Going Postal, which I maintain is an underrated and overlooked entry point for Discworld. For an entry point to Discworld, you want a story that is self-contained, but gives you that full, well-rounded Terry Pratchett appeal, where you get to see how creative his world building is, how passionate his character building is, and I think Equal Rights, also just giving like a ton of love and respect to the Postal Service, is a super well-rounded encapsulation of what makes Discworld so appealing to its fans. I know a lot of people want to like send you down the series of like Guards Guards or Death, and I used to absolutely preach that more. But today, so many people are looking for standalone reads, and Discworld, though it is a series, is chock full of standalone reads, so be sure to check that on out. Nothing But Blackened Teeth. This book should be very happy that I just read some Terry Goodkind, because Terry Goodkind, Dead of Bones, still the worst thing I read this year by a huge margin. But Nothing But Blackened Teeth is maybe the biggest disappointment of the year, because I went in with some kind of expectations, and what I was delivered felt like a parody of what those expectations were. Incredibly obnoxious characters, a complete failure at actually realizing tension or horror. I don't think this book achieved anything it set out to achieve, and I'm really sorry how harsh that sounds, but I'm allowed to have my personal preference, and good lord, did that book actually just annoy me from beginning to end. I hate you. Monster, which I believe I'm 2 volumes ahead of where my last review is, but this has continued to be really good overall, though I will say it's kind of wearing thin in the last 2 volumes in a few of the areas where the series was stronger. I'm going to be doing a full series review once I finish. I'm not going to be going volume to volume as I was anymore with it, just to save y'all time. I don't want to be redundant. But this is still a very high B. Monster, I think if its conclusion is pulled off really well, could bump up into the high A territory, or if it's kind of fumbled, could fall down. I'm not sure, but I'm still having a really good time with my first ever manga thriller. No, I read Death Note, but my first ever manga thriller I'm liking.
Sir, we have a report of shots fired.
Next up, we have one that's not sci-fi fantasy, actually, but it's a book that I included in a review, and so I want to include it here, partially just due to the fact that I'm a completionist, but also due to the fact that a number of people who, after I mentioned this book, said either they'd already read it and it was life-changing for them, or have since picked it up and sent me messages about how much it really helped them. The Body Keeps the Score is the best book from an academic standpoint I have ever read on the current mental health crisis in the United States and our misunderstandings of what trauma, generational trauma, and the statistics around trauma are. And so for me, this is going to be an easy S tier, but I would also just acknowledge it's not a fiction book. It's not something you should read for good fun haha times. It's really dark and sad. Next up, we have One Punch Man, which I think I got through like 1 or 2 or 3 volumes. I didn't complete an arc here, so please keep that in mind. But from what I read, I get it. Much prefer Mob Psycho by the same author, though I have finished Mob Psycho, duh. But from what I read, solid B tier. It was fun, and I definitely get the appeal of the main character as this like parody of the Superman type. But following that up, we have a level of whimsy and personality from an author that is just addictive, and that would be the Wizard, or A Wizard of Earthsea. And Le Guin, for me, kind of just cheats her way into S tier. Where am I going to put this? I think I'm going to put her just below Black Sun, actually. But yeah, Wizard of Earthsea stands the test of time. Is also, I would recommend a book people should look at if they're looking for a very different approach to prose and storytelling in terms of structure, because it's not like everything else Le Guin ever wrote. It's pretty distinct in how she moves the reader through the story and tells the story. I mean, this thing books it. Pierce Brown's Lightbringer. The guy just keeps getting better and better, in my opinion. Lightbringer was full of what so much makes Red Rising special. On a technical level, I think it's a massive success. I think my biggest criticism is some of Pierce Brown's approaches to battles and conflict can get a little bit, just a little bit redundant at times, but it's not egregious, and it's more than made up for with just how truly epic in all senses of the word this story has become. It's been a pretty positive list so far. Oh, I see what's coming. Never mind. This is going to shift up fast. But I think I'm going to keep this probably the top of A right now. That feels good right now. Untethered by Fondly, another unfortunate bit of a disappointment here. I wanted this to be a bit more imaginative, a bit bigger. Unlike Nothing But Blackened Teeth, this was a story where the problem was I tried to take the story for what it is, but still I was left wanting so much more. I'm gonna say this is probably just a top of D, though I still have so much tremendous respect for Fonda Lee as an author. She is someone who has penned one of my all-time favorites, the Greenbone Saga, so I was just really surprised to see this fall so low. Then we have Flight, Volume 1, which is just a anthology of comics telling stories around a theme of flight. I think this is like the ultimate, if you want to have a fantasy related like piece of media you know will hook someone as like a coffee table piece, grab a volume of Flight, throw it down, and anyone who has like a moment to kill in your place and picks it up will not regret it. And so I don't mean that as a negative at all, but it is absolutely like ultimate coffee table, quick read and enjoy fantasy. Blame! Exclamation point. Oh, this is going to be hard to put in here. I appreciate Blame so much for being so different and so weird and just vibing to its own tune. But it's a story that at the end of it, I am just left kind of going, but I don't, okay, what I saw. So for me, I think I'm going to put it top of B. If you're going to be a totally well-read manga nut, absolutely check out Blame or Blam, depending on if you want to correct the translation issue or not. But for me, I know if I reread it, I would pick up so much more. I don't know if I want to reread it.
What is happening?
No coincidence. The Cyberpunk novel that came out this year is good, but not special, not something I would fervently recommend to anybody. I think I'm just going to put it probably top of C if you love Cyberpunk. Specifically if you love, Cyberpunk Red, Cyberpunk 2077, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Check this one out for sure, because it does play into a lot of the fan servicey type things, not in a negative way, there quite well. But on the grand scheme of science fiction and fantasy, it kind of falls to the wayside. Blood for Coins, a book by Cam Wolf, fellow YouTuber, shout out to you. This one falls into definitely a self-pub author who is, going to be working on improving their craft, but had a lot of personality, and I think characterization is something that people even could learn from with Cam at this point. And anything that has like chemistry between characters so powerful within the narrative kind of instantly gets brownie points from me. I'm going to go ahead and throw this here just above Mad Uncle McGillicuddy's, and I'm definitely going to bring Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England above those two self-pub books, just because on technical levels, there's a huge gap there. And yeah, like the appeal of Sanderson does win me over in some ways for Wizard's Handbook, though I'm kind of left wondering, like, should I include in my enjoyment like the little cartoons that told like a secondary sub-story within the book and all the illustrations? Because like I kind of want to count those, and if I do, it should be even higher, but it's not the book. Like that's not the story of the book, though. It's an unrelated secondary story. I'm not sure how to count that. Next up, we have Wano from One Piece. I haven't done a review on. I think I will hold off doing a review on until after my next read-through of One Piece is done here on the channel. But it's not my favorite One Piece arc. It's really good. I think it's definitely in like the top third of One Piece arcs. I just definitely miss some of the smaller moments in One Piece, but I did catch up. I'm happy to say I caught up, and don't take a 1.5-year break from One Piece. It hurts your brain to try and get back into it. Surprising amount of lore you got to keep track of. I'm going to put it just below How to Train Your Dragon. Tress and the Emerald Sea, absolute banger from Sanderson. Started off the secret projects by showing everybody these are not throwaway novels. These aren't trunk novels that he's hauling out for just like an extra quick buck. I think a lot of people have this as like in their top 3 Cosmere novels now. So I'm going to go ahead and put it just right there next to Lightbringer at the top of A. This was the year of Sanderson, and it was not a disappointment. We can all say that in hindsight. I actually went through and finished a whole lot more of Vagabond, and I totally understand the appeal. This one hits and is one I'm going to be wanting to do a lot deeper, more thorough videos on in the future. And I'll probably put, God, this is a weird lineup. How to Train Your Dragon, Vagabond, One Piece, 1984. Walk into a bar. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, another entry from Sanderson. One I thought I liked just as much as Tress in the Emerald Sea, but as time has moved on, I think I like Tress a smidge more, and within that smidge, I can go ahead and fit at least those 3 books. Do I like I think I like Vagabond a little bit more. And yeah, it's looking like that. That is a wider smidge than I thought it would be. But yeah, they're both still definitely within A. Oh, and speaking of, for next one, we have another Sanderson project, The Sunlit Man, which I did enjoy just as much as Tress in the Emerald Sea. These are definitely my 2 favorite Sanderson secret projects. I don't think, like, on paper, I should like Sunlit Man as much as I do. I really like Sunlit Man. Sanderson doing his Mad Max, his Indiana Jones, and it working to surprisingly great effect. Next up, we have Cormac McCarthy, The Passenger. I am shocked to say this. This is going D. I never thought I would put a Cormac McCarthy book that low, but it was just insanely unsuccessful. I did not connect with this book, I think, on any level it attempted. Mob Psycho! This was the Halloween special. I highly recommend you watch that one, even though apparently it is getting no love here on YouTube, because I think this is a not only just addictive blend of, like, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and the Dresden Files, but also maybe like a good entry point, depending if you're that kind of person, for manga as a whole. I totally understand why many people rank it in, like, their all-time favorite manga, and I am actually going to wedge it right between Sunlit Man and Tress of the Emerald Sea. There is like an atomic gap between those two, and Mob Psycho's just wedged its way in. I actually forgot I read and reviewed this trilogy this year, and that would be the Icelhorn trilogy for Warhammer. And I understand you Warhammer fans. This is, without question, one of the largest things in science fiction, and my favorite of the 3 books was the first, but by the end of it, it was just kind of hitting this one note so many times again and again, and I just don't think I'm a Warhammer guy. I do apologize for that. I hope the fans can accept this difference. It's going to go top of C. I think these, like, sprawling ton of author entry universes that do certainly have their place within the genres are just something I can't personally ever really fall in love with. I even recently tried to get back into Forgotten Realms, for example, and wow, while I loved those as a teenager, even the Drist books failed to hook me in 2023. Next up, we have Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which is something that, man, people love this show, and I don't blame them. It's a lot of fun and really, really good. I am going to say it's my lower A. The characterization, the world building, just continuing to be in Night City has this vile appeal. Like, it's so awful, it's so sad, and it so seems where we kind of might actually be heading as a society in an exaggerated way. I think I had some issues with it that some people didn't share my criticisms on, but yeah, that's gonna be a low A for me. It's definitely worth checking out, even if you're just a Cyberpunk fan in general. You don't even have to be a fan of, like, the game. I've also caught up on One Piece's Egghead Island Park. Maybe controversial opinion, not sure, honestly. I am enjoying this more than I have enjoyed Wano by a bit. I'm just going to go ahead and put it one above Wano. I don't want to spoil anything, but I have a thing for mad scientists. I am absolutely adoring the aesthetics, and giving me a martyr type character that's a bit unexpected will melt my heart right away no matter what. So for those reasons, I am so excited for Egghead Island. It's building itself to be, so far, possibly my favorite One Piece arc in a while. Next up, we had another one that's like a big hit with its fans, but was kind of a miss for me, though I predicted this, and that's absolutely what people said in the comments in that video. Kingdom, the first arc, didn't love. Everyone let me know. It's like the second, third arc that people fall in love with it. Totally can appreciate that. But I found this one, especially in the first arc, to be just too basic. It went through so many beats that just felt like it was checking boxes, and had more potential than what it delivered on, and tried to do too much in too few chapters. I'm actually going to put this just below Blood for Coin. I might attempt to get further into Kingdom in the future, but right now my focus is on Vagabond and Vinland Saga. I'm doing the V's. Oh, and we have 2 shows to go here I'm excited to bring in. We have The Last of Us. This show was like the one I was most confident in turning out to be really good overall, and it just was. The ending, I still maintain they mishandled a bit. I'm going to put it just below the One Piece here and say, yay, we got a really good adaptation from HBO, and I'm excited for the next season. Speaking of shows that turned out to be great, we have live action One Piece. Who would have thought of the manga to be memed on as like the one to break the curse for everyone else? One Piece, the hardest to adapt manga maybe in existence. Does it? Just what? That's the magical One Piece, I guess. I think this is going to fall just above How to Train Your Dragon for me. There were criticisms. There's certainly some things from the manga that have not translated perfectly. Even on a technical level, there's some weak visuals, but the charisma of the leads, the actual feat of condensing this story in a way that still retains so much of the spirit of what makes it special, One Piece deserves to be an A tier, no doubt. And then we have The Will of the Many. This book, man, I said it might be my favorite read of the year, and I think it actually is. This might bump out This Is How You Lose the Time War. Let me think on that. Oh, God.
Can't ask me to choose.
This is how I'm going to phrase it. This Is How You Lose the Time War was more special to me. The Will of the Many got me more excited because it's a series, and I feel like there's such potential. But for that reason, not based off of what it is going to possibly lead to, just the merits of the book, I have to put This Is How You Lose the Time War at the top. But damn, am I really looking forward to what James Islington's going to bring to the table next. This is my 2023 so far, though. It's been a really fun year overall. We've had some disappointments, but way more like new favorites, and I have to say that is largely due to you all. You have been so wonderful when it comes to understanding my taste, what I might like, what I might just enjoy, like blame, and just appreciate an artistic level. I feel like not only is my audience understanding my taste better, but I'm getting better at conveying to you what I love about these stories, what I don't necessarily like. So, you know, check out the reviews and everything where all this stuff is mentioned, and like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. Have a good one, y'all. Peace. Oh, I bumped the mic. That's the note we're ending this on. Monk. I just said monk bump, not Mike bump, monk bump.